Hi there, this is Doug the Eclipse Guy, and this discussion is going to be um, strategies and processes for optimizing your warehouse inventory. How to identify dead stock, how to identify fast and slow moving stock, and how to go about rearranging your inventory physically so that you can most efficiently optimize the picking of orders. And as you can imagine, this is, well, it's got a lot of moving parts to it. And of course, our wonderful favorite tool, Eclipse, gives us all kinds of different reports and ways of looking at this data. And just like everything in Eclipse, no single one of them gives us exactly what you need. So you got to do a bunch of different things, a bunch of different ways to get a fairly clear picture that is actionable. So, starting at basic warehousing principles, it goes like thus. Um, Warehouses cost money. Square footage is expensive. Not to mention the cost of the inventory that you're committing. Every dollar of inventory that you buy that isn't being sold is money you threw away on the cost of the part. Um, Even if it is an electrical product or a plumbing product, these things, they do age. And at a point in time, they're going to become worth less or unsellable uh, over the longer spread of time anyway. In the Big Book of Warehousing, um, they say that everything that you keep in the warehouse generally loses 16 to 25% of its value every year. So I don't care what kind of killer deal you have, you definitely want to get at least everything that's in your warehouse sold at least once a year. Um, Waiting any longer than that, and eventually it loses so much value that even when you do get around to selling it, you just lost money. You just keep losing money. Um, you've used up the space that you could have used for things that you actually sell, and I've never seen a warehouse yet that wasn't running out of space. Plus, you also took a sum of money to buy that part that you bought a part that you couldn't sell with, and that's money that you didn't have towards profit for the owner. And strangely enough, owners seem to like that whole profit thingy. I haven't figured out why yet. And that money couldn't go towards buying a product that would sell, which would have made him profit or her. So negatives all the way around. So as a general rule, from the books that I've read over the years, an efficiently run warehouse that is profitable, although it might only be moderately so. This is, of course, early 2000s. These books that were written, I think, they expect that you need at least 8 inventory turns of any particular warehouse in a year in order for that particular location to be profitable in the wholesale business. Turns means, of course, taking the warehouse, filling it completely full, and emptying it 8 times a year. And ideally, your owner, your boss, would like to see something like 11 to 12 turns a year, which is, I've never seen a place that could do that. But, you know. So, very, very important. You're not in the business of buying materials and hoarding them forever and never selling them so people can use them. You can think of a warehouse. A warehouse is not where materials go to die. This is like a bus station. Things come in, things go out. If you've got something sitting on the bench for days, weeks, or years at a time, check it to see if it's dead and or get rid of it. So, having said that, I have never seen a manager or owner yet that enjoys having to liquidate materials or throw away things that are obviously broken and or non-sellable. They will kick and scream and fuss. The accounting department will kick and scream and fuss that you can't take the write-offs because it's going to affect the bank and loans that you have out on the business, etc., etc., etc. As best as I can tell, you will be fighting with everybody in the company over trying to do what seems completely rational as a inventory manager, which is to optimize things. So you have to get clever and you have to stage things. The best way of solving a problem is, of course, not to create it in the first place. Do not do practices that will inflate your inventory unnecessarily and give you a bunch of dead materials that will now be an albatross around your neck for the rest of your career. I of course realize that almost anyone listening to this video is going to be walking into an already existing warehouse, and that already means an already existing problem. And well, that sucks to be you. That's there's no other way to put that. In my experience, most of the time, the dead, slow-moving stock thing, a great deal of it tends to be return goods that customer overbought or bought the wrong thing, returned it for credit. Someone decided that it, for some whatever reason, that it wasn't worth processing the paperwork to return it. Oh, we can sell that. It goes on the shelf, and there it sits for the next 15 years. Unloved and ignored because for some strange reason that funny hot pink light switch from the 1960s, which seemed like a cool idea at the time, doesn't sell, especially since you only have 2 of them. So you want to be very, very good at observing your RGAs and processing them. Take a good look at that damn thing, and if you're sure you can't sell it in a year, find some way of getting rid of it. Write it down, write it off, return it, exchange it to another vendor for credit, put it on eBay, whatever the hell it takes, get it off your shelf. Another favorite thing is orphan products. For some strange reason, you switch from one brand to another of a common commodity item, like a conduit coupling or something like that. You've gone from Orbit to Topaz, Topaz to Arlington, Arlington to Fluzumhugi, who knows what. And invariably, humans take shortcuts. And even though you might have 3 or 4 boxes of a perfectly good product that's indistinguishable from the current product you're selling, your people will do the laziest thing possible and sell the new product and leave the old product to sit there and rot, even if it's sitting right next to the new one. So you have to get clever as a purchasing guy and either relabel and incorporate the two so that they get sold, bring them up to the front, put a discount on them or something. But orphan products are a fairly common thing. Another common thing is custom ordered materials. I tend to see this with switchgears, stand-ups, things like that, where a bunch were ordered, or something was ordered for a job. They screwed up and at the manufacturing, and it wasn't right and it couldn't be used, and something was done, a side deal to make good on that, or there were just some surplus stuff, and the contractor goes, it's perfectly good, but you won't give me credit for it. It's cluttering up my driveway or something. Here, take the damn thing. And the wholesaler thinking, hey, that's money. We'll grab that, take it, put it in, stick it in a corner where it will stay for the remainder of everyone's career, because no one knows what to do with it. No one knows how to sell it. No one wants to bother with it because you haven't incentivized it. It doesn't sound like a big deal because, lo and behold, well, you didn't pay anything for it. It was free. You entered it into the inventory, and hey, it had no cost. Somewhere along the line, I guarantee you, someone will screw up and add a value to that damn thing, and now you can't easily get rid of it in your inventory because it's on the books as having a cost that you never paid for it. And all suck be you. You know, once again, don't bring those things in if you can avoid it. If it is there, find every way possible to get rid of it as soon as possible. In one of the places that I worked, we knew we had a fair bit of dead inventory over 20 years of operation or so. We did not realize until the company was actually sold. After it was sold and the new owners did a serious inventory of what was really there and a serious determination of what was actually sellable, we had to throw away almost 1/3 of the inventory, which amounted to close to $2 million. That's a huge hit. And the embarrassing thing was, of course, the money that was wasted on that material to begin with, the money that was spent all the years inventorying that stuff that didn't sell, moving the business several times over the years for more warehouse space when all we were doing was storing more and more shit that wasn't selling. And having to crawl over it, having to inventory, having to move it around year after year after year, and then having to pay additional money to identify it one last time and hire a bunch of dumpsters and a bunch of people to come on weekends to throw it away. Don't do that if you can. If you are in that situation, I feel for you. So in summary, the two dreaded things for managing inventory is either of the both. You don't want to see empty shelves because that's costing you money. And you don't want to see full shelves that aren't moving because that's costing you money. You want things to move. Nothing stays for long. Think bus station. The first couple of steps in effectively managing warehouse, of course, is layout and bin locations. And if you do not have a layout map drawn up, you need to draw one up because it's very, very hard to have discussions with management and plan things out without having a nice little sheet of paper in front of you to help with the memory process. The other thing that you want to do, as you'll see in this map here if I enlarge it some, is you want to assign bin locations, and you want to be able to put those bin locations in Eclipse and have all your products assigned to bin locations. Have your primary, secondary locations and your floating locations and your master wire reels and all of that good stuff, because well, people think that they're saving time by not doing any of that stuff, not connected to the money. Guarantee it's all connected to the money. You just don't see it. If it takes an employee, a worker, warehouse worker, another 10-20 minutes or a half an hour to find the product because the bin locations aren't right, if you are accidentally reordering stuff because you didn't know you already had it, because your inventory is not up to snuff, if you have the stuff that moves the fastest in the very, very back and people have to crawl over a bunch of stuff to get to it, all that wasted time, it tends to cause people to be more on edge and aggravated, and you don't get your best performance out of irritated workers, and it also wastes time. And your most expensive overhead for any small business is the employees. So you want to make sure that they're working as efficiently as possible. Not having a warehouse that's a cesspool is key to that. Once you do these maps, and once you do these locations, and once you do an initial inventory, now you got to keep doing it. I worked with a company that liked to do annual inventory like once every 3 years or so. They thought that was efficient. Oh Lord, the amount of money that got thrown away. When you've got millions of dollars worth of inventory and you only get a count on it every couple of years, can you imagine how much money you lost? And there's no way to ever track down where that went. So, Eclipse has a wonderful cycle count program in it, very sophisticated, fairly painless. Implement it, or else you will regret it. For those companies that think we've been doing the same blah 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 for 3 decades now and we're doing fine, so why change? I guarantee you, this is now, as of this recording, 2023, soon to be 2024 in a few months here. And the world is changing inside out. Amazon is, the biggest retailer in the world now. The amount of materials they move around the planet in a single day is jaw-dropping. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. As we've seen, decades of consolidation in the industry. Big companies get bigger. Little companies go out of business, or they get bought out by big companies, and their entire processes are turned inside out. If you keep doing things the same old way, manual process, everything on paper, keeping in your head where things are and how much they are, You will not be in business years from now. You don't believe me? Well, time will tell. But emotional things being what they are, thinking rationally, how do you argue that being less efficient is better than more efficient? How do you argue that having everything in borderline chaos saves you more money than having things organized? And it's all scaling too. I don't know any company out there that isn't trying to grow, how to make more with less, etc., etc. And that means efficiency. You've got to squeeze every drop of efficiency out of your facilities, out of your workers, out of your line of credit, out of your customers. That's the world we live in. That's not changing anytime soon. It will get worse or more challenging as time goes on. So bite the bullet, keep up with the modern times, keep things in order. If you have not seriously considered using a wireless warehouse solution like Eclipse provides, where you get to go paperless and the pickers get devices that they scan, and the orders show up on the screen of the device. If you don't already have it, you should be thinking about trying to put it in a couple of years, because the amount of time it saves is incredible over time. It will pay for itself very, very quickly. And your customers, when they can get the speed of delivery that they get out of Amazon, and soon to be other retailer or traditional retailers, they're not gonna play for the same "we'll get it to you when we get it to you" like they did 20 years ago. So speed, efficiency. Also, once again, you're going to have those layout drawings. You're going to have bin locations, and additionally, if you're going to do wireless warehouse, you're going to have picking zones set up. Everything is stacks upon the previous thing. So you gotta get all the layers in the stack there. As we all know, Eclipse is very, very robust in locations that you can create. And if you typically, in a normal warehouse, you'll have stock locations, and you'll have a primary pull location, and you'll have a secondary overstock location, which usually is just a couple of shelves above the primary. And you have to teach and reteach your warehouse people to pull the order from the primary location. And at some point that you're going to relocate overstock into primary and make material adjustments. If this is not done regularly, then the system is not going to keep track of what's where very well. So that has to be done. All of this has to be in place before you try and do the next steps. A place for everything, and everything its place. Before you can do all the high-level stuff, all the low-level stuff has to be done first. Try building a roof before you put the foundation and the walls in, and you'll see what happens to a house. So, bin locations and having everything in the bin locations and having the product inventory correct has to be done before you can think of doing any of the other stuff. Once you've got everything in bin locations, or you think you're pretty close, you want to run some regular reports and clean up things that may be out of whack. So luckily Eclipse has a whole bunch of reporting systems, and the simplest reporting tool is the web-based Eclipse reports. And here I've created a basic report for branch 2 that will give me the items and the locations and the quantities that these items can be found in, with this simple filter of on hand greater than 0, and I'm wanting specifically branch 2. So we go ahead and run that report, and that'll give us hopefully some very useful information to start with. This is the output of the product locations report, and as we can see here, it will show us all of the items and all of the locations the items are in, and the count that I should expect at that. This is a report or something similar to it that you should be running regularly to try and keep your locations in order and relatively clean. Returns will show up on this report, which is an extra reminder of course, everyone does not want to do returns. It's frustrating, annoying. It's like trying to cook a steak by breathing on it heavily. But you gotta get it processed, or else it will stack up and it costs money, and it generally just mucks up everything else. Here's an example of a return. As a good rule, you should have all your returns processed at least on a 60-day cycle. Most vendors these days will not even give you return credit if you don't have it back to them within a year. So the idea of letting a 6-foot-tall stack of stuff pile up in the corner of the office for 3 years and then do, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, we need some money, let's see if we can do some returns, that doesn't work very well. So don't do that. Invariably, another thing that you're looking for in this report is to be looking for things that have a quantity but no location, like that one. These things, you want to hunt them down and assign them to a location or do something, because were they stolen? Are they there? Are they sitting on the floor? Are they under someone's desk? If you can't find it, it makes it real hard to sell. Don't do that. So to my mind, this is, one of the first several steps in the long process of trying to manage your inventory. If you can't find it, if you're not sure where it's at or how much of it you have, it's going to make it real hard to do sales. So next step. So now that you know where everything is and how much of it you've got, the next tool that's probably useful in your arsenal is the inventory on hand with no sales report. And this one is gonna, now we start getting an idea of what materials we have that are dead. And then we can start isolating it from the inventory proper, put it in a dumpster somewhere or a cargo container in the yard or something so it's out of the way, and figure out what to do with it long term. So very useful report. And this shows up in the end of month reports for some reason. So this is what the on hand with no sale report will look like, downloaded from Eclipse. Of course, text format. You can do a CSV export. It usually garbles things and puts in artifacts. They're a pain in the ass to clean up. So if you're me, you've run custom Python programs, written them over the years to clean that stuff up for you and turn it into something like this. You're welcome. Okay, now you've got a listing of dead stock items. Now you can plan out with your warehouse crew and have these things pulled from the shelf of the main warehouse to free up space for materials that actually sell, and figure out what to do with these, cut a deal with another vendor for credit exchange, discount it, come up with a pallet sale, throw it away, write it off, whatever it takes, but free up your valuable warehouse space when you can. Okay, so you've binned everything, you've inventoried everything, you've identified the dead stock, and now between the location reports and this type of thing, now you can send out your warehouse crew to pull this dead stuff and make arrangements of doing something with it. At this point, of course, the next thing is going to be, well, optimizing. Hopefully you're freeing up some good space in your warehouse that you're selling stuff out of, and you've found good ways of making use of that new space. Now you probably want to consider optimizing the warehouse so that the stuff that comes in and goes out the most is easiest to pick. And, well, that depends entirely on the layout of your warehouse and a bunch of other factors. But the thing that you want to do is get an idea of rank. Right, in the big book of warehouse management, you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G items. Dead stock are obviously G items, as we can see here in this report. A is your fast moving stuff. That is whatever quantity you usually keep in stock, you replenish usually once a month. B would probably be like once every 60 days, and on and on. In a perfect world, you never have anything in your warehouse that's further than D, and almost no D. Of course, this is not a perfect world. So we want to get some idea of ranking. Eclipse does have ranking reports, but they've got some quirks, which I will show here momentarily. Okay, so here is the product rank report under purchases, and they like to stick under forecasting because that's the last place I look for it. Always confuses the heck out of me every time I look for it. This report is fairly flexible in that you create a template and you decide, you can either accept the default formulas, or you can decide for yourself what you consider A, B, C, D items to be in this report. Here we're going to do we're using our template general, branch 2. I'm going to run the ranking report on everything instead of just one price line. We're going to include the non-stocks. Yes, ranked per item. Here's our breakdown. A items are going to be 80%, B items 15%, C items 4%, etc., etc. And there are different ranking methodologies that you can write formulas for. Honestly, I do not know a lot about that, so I tend to take the defaults. And then we go ahead and run it. I'm not entirely sure, but the ranking report may also depend on the updating the demand forecasting, which is supposed to be done regularly before you run these forecasting reports. It's been so long I honestly don't know, but when in doubt, can't hurt by running this update demand forecast first before you run the ranking report. Here is what the report looks like. The ranking report looked at from your hold file within Eclipse Solar, and if you want to, if you're doing stuff within Eclipse, this is more useful because you've got these wonderful hyperlinks to be able to jump to specific product information and do things here. But quite often you would be using this active report within your hold file, but you'd also want a spreadsheet, so you'd be downloading. And through a text download and the magic of a Python script that I ran, because once again you can't get this directly into Excel, so I had to write something custom, we have the export of the product rank information. Now here is why this is not as useful as it apparently looks at first blush. What it is ranking is what is the A item to a particular price or buy line. So like Aleo lighting. This is the highest seller for Aleo lighting. Well, just because it's a high moving product as far as Aleo is concerned doesn't mean it's a particularly high moving product as far as the branch is concerned. You still may only be selling 2 of these a year in some cases. That's not what you'd consider an overall A item. So this is not at all useless. It's very, very helpful for the purchasing agent to decide what he's going to keep in stock and set his min maxes up if he feels necessary, or decide what things that he might have overages of and return or exchange for other products. But if you're trying to rearrange an entire warehouse, then your overall A product, not very useful here, and you've got to come up with other methods. One possible tool for helping you out on this journey of self-discovery is the aged inventory report. Now this particular report is really designed more to write down older inventory. It's pretty flexible on what you can calculate here, how old you want to consider old, and how much of a percentage of write down you want to do. Some companies do this. A lot of small companies don't. And if they bought it for $100 20 years ago, it's still on the books for $100, and that's why they have so much trouble cleaning up their inventory, because they refuse to acknowledge the aging of their materials. Had they done that, they probably wouldn't have kept it in the warehouse for 10 or 20 years. Anyway, so that's what it was originally intended for, but we can slightly modify it for our own purposes. And through the magic of Python conversion and export, this is what the information would look like, all nice and clean and pretty. Now, we're not really going to be so much interested in these columns here for writing down the inventory. The thing that we're more concerned with here is deciding what's highest moving materials for us. What's our ABC, not necessarily what's the ABC for particular vendors' products. So if we go ahead and take this report and sort it by year sales numbers or on-hand balance, year sales probably, yeah, year sales would probably be best in this case. And this dollar-wise gives us an idea of what our hottest selling moving products are. Now, of course, it doesn't really give us a clearer picture. Is that in this case, this is wires, so these are different bundles of Romex, which is understandable. But if you were not familiar with a product, we might be looking at something that okay, this looks like a high mover, but it maybe it was only a count of one. It's a high dollar item, and we only actually just sold one this year. That's a fairly small item. Year sales is helpful for determining fast moving stuff, but it can be somewhat misleading, and there might be another which way we want to go, something that gives us more idea of not just the dollar value but the actual count, and that might get our heads around this a little bit better. Another thing to look at that's useful for this report is the final column here, year supply. And in this case, year supply is going to taking a look at how fast it's currently selling out of the warehouse and how much you have on hand. The system is doing a prediction of how many years supply that you have to sell. And you know, year supply, 6 month supply, 2 month supply, that's not so bad. But when you're seeing things like at the current velocity, we've got 5 years worth of this. Now you might be wanting to look at taking the overstock and putting it somewhere in a slower location, because you got more stuff there than what you're going to move in ordinary time. Now, of course, you know, always keep you know, as you're doing these things, communicate with the other crew, because this might be a special order for some strange reason. It's going out soon or that type of thing. So you never expect that the numbers tell you the whole story. They always tell you a piece of the story. Here's a good one: tamper-resistant hospital-grade faceplate, and we've got a 14.5 year supply. Obviously, this is not something that you'd probably want to have in your fast-moving, easy-to-grab location. You're going to be holding on to this for a while, and this might be a good indication of having a good talk with your purchasing agent and figuring out what the hell's going on here. Here's a better one: 32.25 year supply. What? Time to have conversations with your purchasing agent. So the final tool we'll talk about in our arsenal today is the product orders report. And this is, well, it was intended probably for something else, but it has some useful information that we can co-opt for us trying to figure out how to rank items and rearranging our warehouse accordingly. So I'm sure there's plenty of different ways that this report is useful, but I found this combination of settings gives me the information that I wanted for this particular case. And once again, with the magic of Python conversion, here is our data from that report. And here we can see our product description, order quantity as in per each. Keep in mind this is this particular example here is Romex wire, so this is per foot. It also gives you a dollar amount here, and now this gives you a pretty decent idea of what things are actually physically your fastest movers your fastest inventory. And now you have a better idea of an overall rank, so you can reorder your warehouse. So generally speaking, the stuff that moves the fastest and is relatively light will go closest to, say, the counter area. Things that move fastest but are heavy will go closest to the shelves that are in your shipping receiving dock areas, if they're both the same thing, or your shipping dock if you've just got a shipping dock. Obviously, because you're moving a lot of it, but it's very, very heavy, and yeah, you don't want to waste a lot of time moving things all the way across the far end of the warehouse over the shipping dock to put on a truck. If you've got a hybrid warehouse, well, there's probably 100 different cases you could use on how exactly you want to physically rearrange your materials, but this gives you a pretty good idea of what's moving and what you want to do with it. With your bin locations and your warehouse maps and all this good stuff, now you can start relocating materials when your warehouse guys have free time from pulling orders. Of course, we all know that we're all so busy and making such incredible amounts of money, our warehouse people are never not working, making us money. But provided that they are, have some dead time, then this is a good thing to put them on moving and rearranging things to optimize the speed of which you can pull orders. Always keep in mind when you're looking at these things that, use some common sense here. So here's PVC Schedule 40 10-foot 1.5 inch. Okay, so this is a stick of PVC conduit 1.25 inch. For some strange reason, we sell that fairly fast. But we probably carry all sizes from 1/2 inch to 6 inch. And the 6 inch we probably don't sell that much. Of course, logically, it probably wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to bust those up and have the 6 inch in the far end of the warehouse and the 1/2 inch and the 3/4 inch and the 1 inch right close by. Usually for commodity items like this, you'll have an area just for conduit, and all the sizes of conduit will be there. So use some common sense when grouping things, and don't just move certain sizes of a particular type of product and optimize it. Move all the sizes that you carry in stock into one location. It's more efficient to pull that way, obviously. So keep that in mind. Now, of course, with 187 plus different reports in Eclipse, not to mention the report writers of at least 3 to 5 different flavors, there are a whole variety of different tools that you might use at your disposal for trying to figure out and identify dead stock, slow moving stock, and how to process and how to reorder your inventory. These are just the simplest low-hanging fruit and most obvious things that come to my mind that work for me. So as we mentioned before, start with bin locations and a decent inventory, because if you don't know that you have it, or how much of it, or where it is, the rest of the process goes to hell. Then doing a report like the inventory on hand with no sales in a year. Of course, keep in mind each report has a variety of little parameters that you can tweak to your particular purposes. So if you want to extend the time ranges or narrow it down to a particular manufacturer, most of these reports do something like that. In some cases, a summary report gives you what you need, and sometimes you want a detail of every single sales order, every single purchase order, and almost all of these reports do some variety of that. So yeah, okay, aged inventory with no sale. Product ranking report, which we said is not as necessarily as useful in this case as it would sound, and so we've come up with 2 ways of developing our own product ranking. One of them was using the aged inventory report. Another one was using the product order summary report. And honestly, I think probably the product order summary report is probably better than the aged inventory report for this particular purpose. Anyway, you know, there's a variety of different methodologies and ways, more way than one to skin a cat. Obviously, these are just what makes sense to me. Hopefully this inspires you, and hey, if I have my head up my bum and you've come up with a better, please let me know, because we're all ears. Anyway, thank you for your time and attention. This has been Doug Fashing, the guy who knows Eclipse, and have a nice day.